All right, so let's talk about some of the roles that are built into SQL Server. We actually saw some of those. Remember, we're going to look at, right now, we're going to look at the fixed server roles. So we need to be at security on the server level, not security under our database. Okay. So this is the security that goes with AdventureWorks, and every database we have in here would have its own security folder. But this security folder belongs to the server. Okay. And here's where we saw our logins. We created the login for Sally, right? Actually, am I logged into Sally right now? How do I know I'm logged into Sally? Because I can't see any other logins. Sally can only really see her login in this one. It used to be the system administrator. It's been disabled. So I'm still logged in as Sally. I want to reconnect as me, because I got a lot more permission here. Another thing, Sally didn't have roles that allow her to see all this stuff like we can, because remember, I'm this role down here. I'm the sysadmin, right? I'm logged in right now as the sysadmin. That means I can do anything, and nobody can stop me from doing anything. That's why you don't want to give it out to anybody. Don't make 3 people sysadmins. Make one person sysadmins, and find some way to keep a backup in case they get killed in a car accident or something, so that you can get in an emergency. But you don't want to make, if you have 5 database administrators, they don't all need to be sysadmins. Okay. All right. So let's talk about these roles, these fixed server roles. So under security, we see our logins. Now I can see Sally and Sammy. But right here's our server roles. Okay. These are the roles that come built in. Notice we don't have a guidance counselor role, but if I was making a database system with roles like we discussed in that last one, I can create my own role for guidance counselors. Now, we don't give guidance counselors and people server level permissions very much. That's usually reserved for the techies. These are techie roles because these are things to actually change the server, not actually change data in the database, right? So let's look at what these are. Grant use of these roles very carefully, especially these two, sysadmin and security admin. Security admin can change people's security level, get them into places they don't belong as well. So sysadmin and security admin are very dangerous. So what are some of these things? Bulk admin. This person can bulk insert data, but nothing else. Okay, so maybe you got a database person working for you, and their job is to import a bunch of data from an old system to a new system. Okay, this would be an appropriate role for them. It doesn't. You used to have to be logged in as sysadmin to do bulk data imports. Bulk data imports can bypass some checking and things that we may not want to do. Again, using sysadmin is dangerous, so they've updated this role now, and created this role, so you don't have to log in as the sysadmin to do some kind of bulk inserts to pull data in from another system. Okay, DB creator, what's that role? Members can create databases within this instance. So if I'm a DB creator, I can go up to database and I can right click and say new database. Okay, if I'm not a DB creator, okay, I may not be able to do that. If I don't have that role, I can't create databases unless I have that role or one higher, like sysadmin, because we know sysadmin can do anything, right? Okay. Disk admin can manage the database files. Remember when we first started this up and we had to copy our AdventureWorks.mdb file? Okay, that's database files. So somebody who's a disk admin can actually go manage those files and do things with them. Okay. A process admin can kill processes, view other user processes. They can look at what things are doing, disconnect users, that kind of thing. Okay. Public was the one we talked about when we created the login to begin with. Okay, we said everybody needs to be public. It doesn't give them permissions to do anything other than connect to the server. Okay, and all users need to have that public role or they're not going to be able to connect. It does you no good to create a login that doesn't have that role. Okay. Security admin can modify logins and their properties. They can modify server level permissions. They can reset passwords, and you need to protect the security admin just like you do the sysadmin. That means people should not be using it every day. Make users underneath that have the permissions they need to do for day-to-day things. Okay. Sysadmin does not need to be used on a daily basis. There's very few things you need to be the sysadmin to do on a daily basis. Server admin can change server-wide settings. They can shut down the server. Okay. If you're not in the server admin role, you can't shut down the server. You can't change any of the settings for the server itself. Server properties, there's all the different server settings, right? Setup admin can remove linked servers. We haven't gone into anything that complicated yet. As having multiple servers sharing the same database, we're not doing anything on that level yet, and we won't in this course. And then the sysadmin, they're again God mode. They can do anything. Very dangerous if somebody gets a hold of that. Don't use it every day. Although we've been using our sysadmin account since the beginning. But this is different. We're in a classroom lab setting. So, all right. So those are the server roles, the roles that people can have to work at the server level. Okay. It has nothing to do with the database level, AdventureWorks. That's the server itself. Now we're going to talk about the database or the user-defined, no, we're not. But before I do that, let's talk about user-defined server roles. Okay. Let's create our own role just so you can see it happen. Right-click the security, select new. This has changed. Where's our server roles? Let me pause for a minute. I can find this. We're using a newer version. Okay, I'm back. And I went and discovered why we can't do this. And the reason I can't show you a server role, a user-defined server role, is because we're using SQL Express. We need the full version of SQL Server to be able to alter that. However, I will show you how to do a role in the AdventureWorks folder at the user level roles, which is the same concept, the concept I taught in that last video with adding people to certain roles and giving the roles permission. So we'll talk about those. We'll do an example of setting up a custom role when we get down to this next section. All right, so let's look at server roles down here. Security for our AdventureWorks database. Go to security. Here's our users. Am I logged in? No, I'm logged in. Okay. Here's our roles for the user level. Okay. Access admin, backup operators. What can they do? There's a document that I am going to put in the lesson plan folder that goes through what all these roles are. Database owner owns the database. They basically can do anything. Database security admin means they can change security and give people permissions to different things on the server. Data reader and data writer, we already did examples with those. Data reader, somebody can go in and read the database. Data writer, somebody that can write to the database. Okay. Now these roles are giving them access, reader and writer, basically give them access to read and write to any table. Okay. And we don't necessarily always want to make somebody so they can read and write every table. And we'll look at that in the next video, giving granular permissions to different objects. Backup operators can read the database only for the purpose of making a backup. So when they're logged in, they can run the backup, and obviously a backup has to be able to read the data in order to back it up to a disk. Okay. So it has all these roles. We also have a public role. So let's right click, let's create a new database role here. Okay. Let's call this role name, well, we'll pretend this is our student database. A role name guidance. Okay. What can they do? What do we want them to have access to? We want people with the guidance role. Actually, let's not use guidance. Let's use sales. Sales associate. Sales associate role. What do they need access to? They need access to the sales table of our database. Okay. Securables, standard properties. What else did they need access to? Maybe they also need, salespeople also need, they also need to be able to look at our production. So they've got access to two things here. Who's going to have this role? Well, let's give Sally this role. So we can go in here and add. There's Sally right there. Okay. So Sally is now a sales associate, and she has access to these different schemas that were set up. Okay. So now there's a sales associate role. Okay. So roles on the server work the same way. If you're on a full version of Microsoft SQL, you can set a role that has permissions to do a group of different things, and then you can assign people to that role. So that's where we'll stop on roles for today. I think in the last video, I am going to show you how to take a user and assign a user or a role and assign it to have permission to read or write from a certain table. Or a certain view, or a certain stored procedure. It applies to everything. We'll see that in the next video.